So, hello and welcome, Chris here, T-Titan, and in this video I'm going to talk about a key question you have to ask yourself when you're looking at niches, which is, can the niche be reached on Facebook? So you've got an audience in your mind, people who lift weights, people who own Labradors, people who play the violin. Great, you're sure that there's 100,000, a million people out there who fall into that category within that niche, but can you reach them on Facebook? Because again, if the answer is no, if there are no interests for that particular niche, well then it's as good as useless because we can't advertise on Facebook, which is the main way we drive traffic. We can't get traffic to our design and no one's going to buy it. So really, we have to be absolutely certain that we can reach an audience on Facebook for us to move forward and for us to feel comfortable including it as one of the niches that we want to target. Um, So the way that we find this out is we just do a search on Facebook ads for interests. And interests are basically the way that you advertise to people, the way that you target people on Facebook ads. If we can't find any interests, then like I say, the niche is pretty much as good as useless. In fact, if you can't find at least one interest, then to be completely honest, it probably doesn't even exist as such as a niche, because Facebook is, constantly adding niches. It's not just things that people like, but they're analyzing people's behavior. If you write a post that says, wow, I could really do with a cold beer today, then chances are that Facebook will put you in the interest group, which is cold beer. If you check yourself in at, let's say a football stadium, even if you're not watching a football game, there's a good chance Facebook will at least put you in the interest of that particular place, that stadium, and they might even put you in the interest group of people who visit, or people rather who like the sports team that plays there. And so Facebook really is, crunching a lot of data to put people in these different interest groups. It's not just the things that people like on Facebook, it's the statuses, it's the things they get tagged in, it's the things that they tag their friends in, it's the comments they make, the pictures they put up. So if we can't even find one interest, well, it's really, really not a good sign. And ideally what we want is to see multiple interests. The best niches will often have at least three interests, often five, often 10, and in some cases 50 or even hundreds and hundreds of interests. And in actual fact, if we see like a niche that we've just got so many interests, then chances are what we want to do is, rather than just tackle that entire niche, we want to break it down into a smaller niche. So instead of tackling bodybuilding, we want to go into chest muscles, or instead of going into dog owners, we go into Labradors. Instead of going to car owners, we go into classic cars. Instead of going into the dentist niche, we go into dental students. So if we see loads and loads of interests, probably even too many, then that's actually a good sign, because it lets us drill down and focus on a subsection of that niche, or a sub-niche as we call it. The other thing about interests is that interests tell you a lot about your niche. So because Facebook's got all this great data, if you put Labrador Retriever in and you get, a million people, and then you put Pitbull in and you get 10 million people, and then you put Chocolate Labrador Retriever and you get 300,000 people, then in the space of just a few seconds, Facebook has told you that, for every 100 people who like pit bulls, 30 people like Labrador Retrievers, and only one person likes chocolate Labrador Retrievers, for example. I'm not entirely sure if those numbers match up with what I just said, but you can get a very quick idea for the size of different niches. You can get a very quick feel for, you thought this particular niche was the big one, and it actually turns out this is where all the interest and all the activity is. And for that reason, some people do Facebook as their step one. So, I've come at it slightly differently. I've focused on the finding of the niches. Then, once we've got some good niches and we've tested them on Facebook, then we move on to the designs, and then we move on to the actual Facebook targeting. Some people do it the other way around. They'll actually have the Facebook targeting before the designs. Um, I don't do it that way, but it just goes to show that Facebook advertising is, it's a key part of the whole system. So you always have to have it in the back of your mind as you move through these sort of series of steps. And for that reason, I recommend that in the first stage, which is of course the niche research stage, I recommend that you have Facebook open as a tab while you're looking at t-shirt sites. So while you're seeing if there are t-shirts for sale in your niche, you should also simultaneously be bouncing between the t-shirt sites and also Facebook advertising to see if you can actually find interests that relate to those particular niches. So finding interests on Facebook ads. Now, again, I have to be clear. The way that we're approaching this is we have step one, which is niche research, step two, which is finding designs, and step three, which is setting up the Facebook targeting. We're still in step one, we're still looking at niches and deciding what the best niches to focus on. So this is not the targeting stage, okay? When it comes to targeting, we're really going to properly go through the different interests, arrange them properly, decide which ones are the best ones, and invest a little bit more time before we are willing to spend any money. We're not at that stage yet. This is simply a quick scan to see if we can find an audience that falls within our kind of sweet spot on Facebook. And the way that we do this is we start by entering a main keyword. So this is kind of like the same keyword that you'd put in on the t-shirt sites, and it's kind of the keyword that sums up your niche. So Warcraft, violin, Tom Cruise, baseball, Boston Bruins, firefighter, engineer. It's kind of the single keyword that the seed keyword that starts everything. So we'll put that in on Facebook and see if Facebook gives us any kind of results. Now, ideally, what we want is an audience of between 100,000 and a million people that are 18 and up in the United States, because that's our audience. You can also sell to other territories. You can sell to Canada. You can use other sites like Fabrily that are kind of outside the scope of this training, but you can use other sites other than Teespring to sell in Western Europe or Australia or Singapore or other parts of the world. But really, for the purposes of selling with Teespring, our main market is the United States, and the reason we target people who are 18 plus is simply because those are probably the people that have got money. If you're 15, you've probably not got a credit card. It's going to be difficult for you to convince your mum to buy a Teespring t-shirt. So we want to target people who are 18 plus, who do have money, and who live in the United States, which is our main target market. Now, if when we put our main keyword into Facebook ads and our audience is above a million, then that's probably too big. And what we want to do is we want to try and find a sub niche or a variation of that particular niche. So instead of targeting Labrador, we look for sub-breeds, Labradoodle. Instead of targeting bodybuilding, we look for sub-niches, maybe people who want specifically chest muscles or biceps or whatever. And we try and find an interest, a keyword that when we put it into Facebook, it gives us around that kind of 100,000 to a million sweet spot. If on the other hand, when we put our keyword in and we don't see an audience, we either don't get a match or we get a number which is less than 100,000 people, then it's generally not a good sign. Either we've got the wrong keyword, so instead of putting bodybuilding in, we've put in lift weights. We don't fully understand the main keyword of our niche, or probably in a lot of cases we do, but there's just not the audience there. And really all we can do at that point is to take that keyword and put it into Google and look at some of the websites that appear, and then take those websites and put those into Facebook and see if they generate better results. Also, this searching on Facebook can change your opinion, your definition of what the actual niche is. So very often I'll go in thinking that pit bulls is the niche, and I'll put pit bull in, and I'll find out that some of the most popular interests that relate to pit bull relate to, for example, pit bull rescue homes. So these are like homes that house pit bull dogs, pit bull terriers that people have maybe discarded or thrown out onto the street or whatever, and these rescue homes will bring them in. And so I'll think, well, I was kind of thinking of just generally targeting pit bulls, but I can see now that this rescue home is maybe the main kind of niche. So then I'll start thinking about design ideas like rescue a pit bull, blah blah blah, whatever. And so it can kind of change the spin. You might put in violin and find out that actually viola, which is a related instrument, is actually a better niche. You might put bodybuilding in and find out that actually cross training is the best niche. So this kind of Facebook searching, because Facebook is so authoritative when it comes to the data and the information that they have, you'll find that very often just doing a quick search on Facebook ads will change your entire perspective and opinion about what the niche actually is, basically. So ideally, as I've mentioned, we want many different Facebook interests, but at the same time, remember this is only a brainstorming kind of step one for finding niches, so don't get too carried away. Um, Also, again, and I've kind of touched on this previously, but the more interest that we can pull up, the better. And there's a few reasons for this. One, as I've mentioned, is it allows us to expand. So, if we can start with one interest and that does well, and we're in profit, then we can add another related interest and make even more money, increase the size of our audience, and generate more sales. The other benefit is it allows us to sub-niche. So maybe we kind of stumble onto the bodybuilding niche, and we start off targeting biceps and that does well, and then we move on to triceps, which is another related muscle, people who want big tricep muscles, and that doesn't do as well. But then we try for example, chest muscles as a sub niche, and that does well, and it kind of gives us the ability to play around, and I call it kind of wiggle room, because it's good to have that flexibility. Again, we are going to be doing lots of testing, we're going to be throwing out lots of campaigns, and so it's good to have options. It's always good to have options when it comes to advertising, because it lets us expand, it lets us move sideways, it lets us move up and down, and those are all things that we want to do once we've thrown our campaign out and we start to get data in. The Facebook ads management system, which I'll show you in a second, very briefly, that's probably the main place that you'll just be doing these quick and dirty searches, in terms of at least the finding general keywords for the niche stage. But there's a couple of advanced places that you can look for interests and different keywords you can put into Facebook. One is Google, so simply go to Google and search for various terms. So very often people will search for things like whatever the keyword is. They'll put in the keyword into Google, see what websites come up, then they'll put in keyword blog, keyword clothing store, keyword associations, keyword forums, and you'll basically find all the forums, magazines, stores, merchandise places, associations, etc. that relate to that particular niche keyword. And then you can take all of those products, those associations, those websites, those brands, you can put them into Facebook and you can see if they come up. Not all of them do. Even some of the ones that do have fan pages on Facebook don't appear, but very often they do. And so Google can be a useful place to brainstorm websites and places and people and associations that we can then put into Facebook and see if they come up as interests. There's also a very powerful tool on Facebook which is called Audience Insights, which I'll touch on later on. And this is also a great way to find related fan pages. The cool thing about Audience Insights is you can put in a fan page or an interest or a word, and Facebook will spit out a lot of related interests, a lot of related fan pages that people who like that fan page also like. So you'll put in Boston Bruins and it will give you a list of Boston Bruins players. You'll put in firefighter and it'll give you a list of websites or associations or fire departments that firefighters will often like. So it's kind of a really cool way to brainstorm ideas based on what Facebook thinks is relevant. And again, Facebook just has a ton of data, so it's really good to use Audience Insights and use all that data that Facebook has to brainstorm ideas. Again, I know I've thrown a lot at you in this particular video, and in a later video we will tie it together and you will see how simple it is. But this is really kind of like a 5-minute test. So even though we've kind of spent a good 50 minutes here going through this and the Facebook side of things, once you get quicker at it, once you get better and better at it, you'll start to see how you can very quickly test and very quickly see if there are Facebook interests. So what I want to do now is just go over to the Facebook interest page. If you go over to Facebook and you just click on the top right hand corner up here, just click on create ads, you'll end up on a page like this. Choose clicks to website. It doesn't matter for what we're doing here. We're just going to be doing a quick search. Put Google in. Again, we're not actually running an ad. We're just looking to see what results appear. Scroll all the way down. Under locations, put United States, age 18 and above, and as you can see, this is the that 100k to a million number. This is what we will be looking at. So we've not put any targeting in whatsoever. You can see that within the United States, people who were aged 18 and above, there were 176 million people. So this is really cool. This is one of the things I love about Facebook ads. So let me just click women only, and you'll see that that number will drop down to 94 million people. So within the US, there are 94 million female adults who use Facebook. If I click male, we'll see that there were less. There are actually 80 million males who use Facebook, adult males in the US, which is kind of interesting, more females than males. But what we want to do basically, and this is kind of our brainstorming, is if you remember what I said was that our question is, can the niche be reached on Facebook? And to answer this, we search Facebook ads for our main keyword. And ideally, we want to see lots of interest that appear. And we're also aware of the fact that as we do these searches, we might actually find out that, you know, our original keyword, our original niche idea isn't the best one, and that's totally cool. And the way we do this predominantly is with the interests box, which is this one here. There's lots of other things we can search: behaviors, relationship status, whether people are married or single, what languages they speak, the gender, are they parents, and there's all this kind of advanced stuff like job titles is a cool one, you know. So let me even just give this a quick search. Let's put engineers in, which I've told you is a good niche. Well, chemical engineer, design engineer. Let's just put engineer in and see what the number is. There's 80,000 people, which is pretty much on par with our kind of sweet spot. You know, it's getting close to that 100,000 number. We can also put the same term in here in interest. So let's put engineering, and you'll see that there are far more people, 90 million, 95 million in all of Facebook, and 10 million in the US, who have an interest in engineering, and there's far more of those than people who class their job title as engineer. So generally, the interest section is what we'll work off, okay, rather than the professions one. Job titles can be good, but it can also be quite kind of limited because not everyone actually declares what their specific job title is on Facebook. So interest, so let's just put in, for example, bodybuilding. And the first thing you'll see is if we put bodybuilding in, you'll see this with the really big niches. Straight away, there's just tons and tons and tons and tons of related interests that come up. So we've got bodybuilding itself, which is, you know, too big for us, but let me even just click it. And there's 49 million people on all of Facebook who've got an interest in bodybuilding. And 9.4 million people within the US. And as you remember, our sweet spot is between 100,000 and 10 million people. So that's, you know, that's too big. Now we could look at some of these other terms, bodybuilding.com, female bodybuilding. Female bodybuilding could be a good one. So let's put female bodybuilding, and then of course, because it's for females, we'll put gender, and it's 520,000 people. So that would be a good niche. So, you know, we found a niche. We went in thinking that bodybuilding was our niche, but we've seen that that's too big, that's too broad, and now instead we're thinking, actually, you know what, maybe female bodybuilding is the niche. So maybe then we have a t-shirt that says, you know, like kind of plays in the fact that, yeah, I'm a bodybuilder, but I'm also a woman. So, you know, we could start to search female bodybuilding, and that's kind of the niche we're thinking of. Alternatively, we can try and start to break this down. So you might remember earlier I talked about the idea of not just targeting the main niche, but looking at sub-niches. So instead of doing bodybuilding, we can look at people who want to get bigger chests or bigger biceps. So let me just put in chest muscle. No, okay, nothing comes up. Sometimes you have to try a few variations. Chest exercise, no. Pectorals, that's like the technical name for yeah, so here we go, pectoral minor, pectoral major, and let's see what number that comes out with. Still too small. It's only 5,800 people. Let's try biceps. Okay, good. So we've got biceps here. We've got biceps curl. And there's a few others as well. So 84,000 people. So yeah, this is kind of, if we start to add some of these in, um, it's probably going to bring us up to that sort of 100,000 sweet spot. So yeah, I mean, I'd probably go and, maybe search a few sort of related terms here. Arm muscle, you know, I'd probably just put in a few more of these, but what was that? Feel my biceps. Let's try that one. Yeah, so I mean, it's not jumping up that by that much, but that's kind of around the broad range. So, um, biceps is a possible go. It's kind of the lower end, that 100,000 to a million number. Female bodybuilders right in the middle. That's like a perfect one. You could also look at other sort of variations of bodybuilding. So, for example, natural bodybuilders or cross trainers or people who do specific exercises, people who compete, maybe professional bodybuilders, maybe people whose job title is bodybuilder. I don't think there'd be too many of those, but people who take certain supplements. There's lots of ways you could spin it, but generally, if I put my main keyword in and I see this, then straight away I'm like, and I see lots of them, and I see lots of big numbers, I know it's generally a good sign. Let's just try another one. I think I said violin before, so if we put violin, again with these really broad ones, the numbers tend to be very, very high, probably too high. Um, but 880,000 people, that's a pretty solid number. That's kind of on the upper end of our range. We could also try and drill this down. So again, let's just put violin and see if anything more refined comes. This is probably a good one, Violin Tutor Pro. This is probably like some kind of software or something. Um, for like teaching people how to become better at the violin. Let's see what else we've got here. I'm probably going to have to, I always try and Google the results as well and search them and understand and just make sure, for example, Violin Tutor Pro could be like a $10,000 piece of software, in which case it's a really good keyword to target, or it could actually be like, something completely unrelated to playing the violin. So it's always worth searching these interests if you get a chance. But yeah, violin, that's probably roughly a good enough niche. And again, remember, um, oh, actually, you know what? I had gender up there, so that's actually taking it up to too big a number. That's 1.5 million now, so I probably wouldn't focus on that one. But again, kind of what we're after here is um, we don't want to do too much research. We just want to see if roughly, if it's a, if we can reach people within that niche, roughly within that range. So, it's not so much to sort of really do a lot of detailed research. It's just to see if, there is the possibility that we can find people. Let me just do one more, which is, I think I said Labrador Retriever. So Labrador Retriever, there's 1.6 million people in the US who like Labrador Retrievers. I said chocolate Labradors as well, I think. So chocolate Labrador dogs, maybe chocolate labs. So yeah, there's not, and you have to be careful not including unrelated ones. That's obviously a record label, that's not relevant. My Chocolate Lab, 2000, 3000, 15. You're probably talking 30,000 people who like chocolate Labradors. So actually, that one's probably too small. And Labrador Retriever's probably too large. But there is one other thing that you can do as well. If you find it's like a sweet, it's just outside our sweet spot, you can then target and bring it down to, for example, women only. So this girl loves her Labrador Retriever, and that doesn't drop it that much, which suggests that most of the Labrador Retriever owners are actually female, or at least the ones who like stuff relating to Labrador Retrievers. You could put in, for example, parents, and this would, bring it down to 780,000, and then the niche then is female moms who own Labradors. So it could be like, I love my kids and my Labradors. This girl loves her kids and her Labradors. Um, or put married in as well. This girl, this this girl loves her kids, her husband, and her Labradors, and that brings it down to 380,000 people. So, but the main thing I kind of wanted to show you in this video was not so much the targeting, but more that when you put the word in, do you get enough people? When you put it in as an interest, do you get enough results on Facebook? Do you get up between at least 100,000 people? So when we put chocolate Labrador, you can see that it's like 3,000, 15,000. So even if we start adding all of these in, and it's entirely possible that some of these might not actually relate to our, this might be like a chocolate lab, might be like the name of a restaurant or something, you just don't know. But you can see straight away that it's not going to give us our number. 15,000 people, that's too small. So chocolate Labrador would be something that we would not include. However, bodybuilding is, as soon as we put that in, you can see that we get loads and loads of results with really, really big numbers, but it's probably too big, which is why we then started to come up with new ideas like biceps and biceps curl, and that kind of gave us a more acceptable kind of sub-niche. And then if we also put, I think the other one we settled on was female bodybuilders. You can see there's quite a few here in general anyway, and if we put that in, then that brought it down to 520,000 females in the US who like female bodybuilding. So really at this stage, we're not looking to, do a ton of research. We just want to start putting keywords into the interest box on Facebook, see which ones get at least 100,000 people, and the ones that get 100,000 people, we then go in and move on to the next stage, knowing that there's at least some way that we can advertise to them. So that pretty much covers it for this video. In the next video, I'm going to go through an actual demonstration of me doing this entire keyword research stage, and finding good niches. So hopefully that's going to bring everything together and show you how quickly we can move through a lot of these steps, which maybe up until now have seemed a bit overwhelming and overly detailed. So don't worry, I'm going to do that in the next video. But hopefully this video has shown you the basic idea of what I mean when I say that we need to find an audience of between 100,000 and a million people on Facebook for the niche to be reachable. So thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next video.